Good evening. Dr. Raymond Sawaya, Vice President for Medical Affairs, and the Raja Khouri Dean for the Faculty of Medicine, Dr. Kamal Badr, Executive Associate Dean for Medical Education, residents, students, faculty inductees, parents, and friends. Welcome to the 2023 Gold Humanism Honor Society Induction Ceremony. To start, I would like to ask Dr. Kamal Badr to address the audience.
Thank you, Zaina. Ahla wa sahla fikum. And I'd like to welcome all of you to this very special occasion. AUB is one of the few institutions outside the United States that has a chapter for the Gold Humanism Honor Society. And that is not an accident. AUB is also one of the few that has a chapter for the Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Medical Society, which honors academic achievements. For a long time, people felt that the side of medicine that needed more attention, perhaps, was the development of those characteristics in physicians that patients really like, that patients really want, which is their humanism, their capacity to connect, their capacity to empathize, and their capacity to understand the story of the patient, not just the disease of the patient. And while we, for a long time, talked about these issues, nobody really did anything substantial about it until the Gold Society was founded by Arnold Gold in the United States. But to espouse these values and to create a kind of society that honors those who seem to espouse these values more than others. Now, this is very difficult to make as a choice. And you all know that you are not the most humane people in your class. Okay? You have satisfied a lot of criteria to be selected, but I'm sure there are other people who are very humane and very professional. It's just that this society chooses to do that, honoring, as a way of encouraging these values. We therefore feel humbled to be able to be part of this society because it is across 108 medical schools across the world, most of them in the United States. And we are among the 8 or 9 who are outside the United States. So it is always a difficult choice, but it is always a choice that is not made only on the basis of numbers, as people have said, this is a popularity contest. There are many factors that come into it, and at the end, there's a human factor, which consists of the people who sit around the table, and sometimes decisions that are in one way or the other felt to be unfair are changed. So we do our best. We do our best. We can never really be perfect in a situation like this, but we feel that the people we chose today are extremely deserving. Now, I just want to express very deep thanks to my co-chapter advisor, Zaina Kanafani, who has been a terrific advocate for everything relating to students, and particularly to this society, and also to Ms. Reem Saad. Reem has been central to the success of everything relating to this society. She has connected us she is always in connection with the officers in the United States. She organizes the meeting, and I think we owe Reem a huge round of applause. So now we are going to view a video, right, that will tell you more about what the society is about, for those of you who do not yet know.
A little while ago, I had a patient whose name is Andrew. And I was showing a young pre-med student around. And I said, Andrew, you have a young future doctor in front of you. What do you want to tell her? And he said, listen to your patient. Touch your patient. We're more than the results in the computer. We're more than what the monitor reads.
I was having a very difficult pregnancy and was on bed rest for a number of months. I was finally able to have another exam in the doctor's office, and when he did the exam, he checked for the baby's heartbeat, and there was none. And he turned to me and said, I don't hear a heartbeat. I think the baby's dead. I'll see you tomorrow morning in the hospital. So cold. No connection, no understanding. That was 40 years ago, and it still hurts.
You can be incredibly smart and brilliant physician, but if you can't relate to people, you have failed in your duty to be the very best physician you can be.
At first, being a scientific person and being very evidence-based, I didn't really think that compassion helped outcome. I thought, well, compassion's nice, but does it really make a difference? And I've witnessed how it makes a difference, and so that's really changed the way I want to practice care.
The Gold Humanism Honor Society was created to recognize exemplars of the kind of doctoring that we all want for ourselves.
What a pretty dress. Where did you get this dress?
What the Gold Humanism Honor Society does, it recognizes excellent students and faculty that have those characteristics of humanism. Why? Because we want every single student to realize that's a goal that you must try to achieve.
Good to see you this morning. It makes a stand and says, this is an important part of our medical curriculum.
You have to listen to and learn from your patients.
I have been a member of the Gold Humanism Honor Society for a year now and was elected by my classmates, which I think was probably the greatest honor of medical school.
After becoming a member of the Gold Humanism Honor Society, I became exposed to mentors and national leaders in medicine that make humanistic medicine a frontline treatment in patient care.
It's not just one day I got this award and that's it and I'll just look back on it and say thanks, but it's a constant reminder for the future.
Well, it's nice to talk with you.
Of how I want to be as a physician.
Okay, I understand.
The society serves as a model of what we're striving for. That you want to be the very best doctor you can be, and at the same time have this humanistic approach to interacting with patients. That's what the Honor Society is about.
Hi, Liz. I was asking you if you're actually seeing me, so they told me you are. It is my great pleasure tonight to introduce our guest speaker, And our guest speaker, Elizabeth Gaufberg, who lives in Boston, is actually the reason or the catalyst that brought us into the Gold Humanism Society. She was here for a meeting we had back in 2018 about the future physician and the two tracks in which training of physicians ought to take place, technology and humanism, and how these were going to be married or work together in the physician of the 21st century. We had a big group of experts, among them Elizabeth Gaufberg, and she said she saw all the things that you, the students, were doing at the time. And she became very impressed by what you were doing and thought that this would be a very good place a very good institution to apply for membership in the Gold Society. And so we did, and in 2020, when we got into the society, it was the middle of the pandemic, and we really didn't have a chance to thank Liz for her contribution. So she's going to talk to us today by video, but let me just tell you who she is other than her relation to AUB. She is an MD and an MPH. She's an associate professor of medicine and psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, and the director of professional and academic development at the Cambridge Health Alliance, and a senior consultant to the Association of American Medical Colleges. Fundamental role of the arts and humanities in medical education initiative. So Liz has a long-standing interest in the role of art in medicine. She has co-founded and co-directed the Harvard Macy Institute Art Museum-based Health Professions Education. So she showed us some of that, where she takes people to museums and teaches health out of what she sees in those works at the museum. Liz served as the Gene and Harvey Picker founding director of the Arnold Gold Foundation Research Institute, and during which she developed a community of practice of researchers, educators, and advocates dedicated to advancing humanism in healthcare. For the past 20 years, Liz has led the Harvard Medical School Cambridge Integrated Clerkship Developing Physician course, which is a very unique program that she has developed of longitudinal clerkship. Her areas of professional interest include exploring assumptions about teaching and learning, developing innovative models of medicine, of medical education and humanities, and arts-based pedagogy. Liz.
Congratulations to the Gold Humanism Honor Society awardees and their loved ones, and thank you for inviting me to give this keynote. I have a very special place in my heart for AUB, having been welcomed to your incredible institution, to your home, in 2018 by Dr. Bader for a conference on humanism, technology, and the physician of tomorrow. And that's why I decided to ditch the kind of boring Zoom background and invite you to my home here in New England. I have to say, when I arrived to AUB, I was immediately embraced as if I were already a good friend. And I was also treated like royalty, so I really had the best of both worlds. I wish I could be there in person to give a big hug to each of you. I was privileged to work at the Arnold P. Gold Foundation for a number of years, and so I know a little bit about the impact of the Gold Humanism Honor Society, and also a little bit about the selection process. The nomination forms, which are distributed to classmates, provide 6 statements that get at various attributes of a humanistic doctor. And the nominators are asked to write the names of the classmates that embody that attribute. There's one that I'd like to call out: the classmates you would want as the doctor for yourself or a loved one. Think about that for a minute. Imagine a person you love deeply, and imagine that they are ill. Bring to mind a doctor who you would want to take care of your loved one. What qualities this person would possess? What words and tone of voice and presence would that doctor bring to the bedside? And you know that you are someone that your classmates bring to their minds. That is the level of trust your peers have in you already. It must feel like an enormous honor and an enormous responsibility, and I suspect a little bit of, wait, me? Really? And that's okay. I'll say a little bit more about that response in a moment. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about Arnold Gold, who, along with his wife Sandra, established the Arnold P. Gold Foundation in 1988. 1988 happened to be the year I graduated from medical school, so I didn't have the honor of participating in a GHHS chapter myself. I did get to work at the Gold Foundation, and I was so fortunate enough to know Arnold well before he died in 2018 at the age of 92. There are so many things I want to tell you about Arnold. He was a pediatric neurologist, and some of his first patients were polio patients living in iron lungs in the 1940s. Many of the children he cared for over his career had devastating diagnoses and prognoses. They had intractable seizures and brain tumors and developmental delays or developmental reversals, and they had stunned and bereft parents. Arnold would enter the room, and first he would kneel down and talk directly with the child, play with them. He played for the sake of play, but it also happened to give him important clinical information. He would tell the parents what a beautiful, remarkable child they had, and he meant it. He would ask things like, what does she like to do? What makes him happy? At his funeral, a father of one of his patients, who I believe had cerebral palsy, said, every other doctor would tell us what our child would never be able to do, but Dr. Gold told us what he would do, could do, and that made all the difference. Arnold used to talk about how love was the driving force of medicine. He would tell us there was a statue of Aphrodite in the courtyard of Hippocrates. He would tell patients and families and students and colleagues that he loved them, and he meant it. And it didn't feel weird or inappropriate, because Arnold had this inner light that made you feel that you were being blessed by him. Never shy away from using the language of the heart. It doesn't make you any less professional or competent, and it can make all the difference. Arnold himself was wheelchair-bound in the last several years of his life. Ironically, he had a degenerative neuromuscular condition, and he was sort of slumped over in his wheelchair, and people who didn't know him often thought he was completely out of it. But if you went over and knelt down next to him and asked him how he was doing, he would lift up his head and say, I'm doing great, and he meant it. But he would immediately turn the conversation to you. How were you? What was meaningful to you? And he would listen and nod, and you felt blessed. In thinking about what I wanted to say to you today, of course, to congratulate you and thank you for the excellent care you provide to patients, but probably the most important thing I can say to you is you will not be perfectly humanistic 24/7. I'll say it again. You will not be perfectly humanistic 24/7. No way. You will have failures of kindness. You will have moments of doubt. You'll sometimes actively dislike the patient in front of you. You may lose your temper and snap at someone. You may even have moments when you do something that violates your own moral sensibility. And that has to do with those first 5 letters of humanism. H-U-M-A-N. You're human. I can tell you that even Arnold Gold, for many years, would come home from the hospital frustrated and upset about all the problems in healthcare, particularly the dehumanizing aspects of medical culture. And he would complain and complain to his wife, Sandra. And finally, she said, Arnold, I'm tired of your griping. Do something about it or shut up. And he did something about it, of course, with Sandra by his side. You don't argue with Sandra. Now I want to tell you a story from my own medical school days, the very first month of medical school when we had anatomy lab. And my lab partners and I were gathered around the table doing a dissection. And my lab partner, one of my lab partners, did something very disrespectful to the cadaver. It was an example of black humor that was pretty common in those days. And it's the kind of thing that the student would had to have some serious remediation these days. What I remember is after he did that, the students around the table had different reactions. More than half of them laughed, and a couple of them maybe rolled their eyes and kind of looked disapproving. One woman turned on her heels and walked away. I don't know what the expression on my face was, but I do remember looking around that table and thinking, every single one of these classmates is a good person. The admissions committee did a good job. But if you put a group of young people in a room with dead bodies, with no opportunity to reflect or express gratitude, or to see role models who treat the cadavers with respect and dignity, then something like this is going to happen, for sure. Over the years, I've thought many times about what I might have said to my peer in the moment about his comment. I would want to say something that would not shame him, that doesn't usually work, but might help him find his better self. I feel I could have done better in that moment, but I do think that that experience and others in which I kind of lost my humanity, propelled me to do some of the things I've done in my career, including researching and writing about the hidden curriculum and working for the Gold Foundation. So we are not humanistic 24/7, but it's about how we reflect on our failures of kindness. It's what we do about it. In fact, the author David Brooks calls people like you and me stumblers. And he says, we are all stumblers, and the beauty and meaning of life are in the stumbling, in recognizing the stumbling and trying to become more graceful as the years go by. The stumbler scuffs through life, a little off balance here and there, sometimes lurching, sometimes falling to her knees, but the stumbler faces her imperfect nature, her mistakes and weaknesses, the unvarnished honesty with the opposite of squeamishness. She is sometimes ashamed of the perversities of her nature, the selfishness, the self-deceit, the occasional desire to put lower loves above higher ones. But humility offers self-understanding. When we acknowledge that we screw up and feel the gravity of our limitations, we find ourselves challenged and stretched with a serious foe to overcome and transcend. The stumbler is made whole by this struggle. I want to say a word about your peers. Only 10 to 15% of students in a class can be inducted into GHHS, and a whole lot more of your peers, as you would say, could have easily been up on this stage with you. Some of them may express their humanism more quietly. For some of them, humanism is some nascent bud inside them that is just beginning to grow. Brooks talks about making commitments in your life, which means, quote, falling in love with something and then building a structure of behavior around it that will carry you through when your love falters, end quote. And by structures, Brooks doesn't mean yoga class or gratitude journals, although those things can be really helpful. He means structures like family and community and service opportunities and sometimes religious practice. In fact, the guy from the anatomy lab, I learned years later that he became a family doc and moved to a small town where he cared for patients over their lifespan. He was on his kids' he coached the kids' soccer team, and it was a member of his church. I wonder if he thought about that event in an anatomy lab, and if it was a turning point for him. I think he was a stumbler too. That's what Arnold did. He believed in love, and he built a structure for you, one that will carry you and your classmates through when your love falters, and that's GHHS. Arnold would be so proud of you today, and so am I.
We will now proceed with the distribution of the certificates and pins to the inductees. I would like to ask Dean Sawaya and Dr. Badr and Associate Dean Badr to join us on stage. As each name of each inductee is called, you will see on the screen a code that the inductee felt would be best representative of their idea of humanism in medicine. And we will start with the faculty members inducted to the AUBFM GHHS chapter to 2023. دكتور أمية محمود مشرفية. دكتور رامي عبد الرحيم محفوظ. And Dr. Noor Majid Muqallid. Next, we will call upon the residents to be inducted to the AUBFM GHHS chapter for the year 2023. Dr. Ali Atif Atwi. Dr. Walid Aman Al-Hout. Dr. Chantal Jamil Akkari. Dr. Abdulrahman Jamal Al-Rifai. And Dr. Eli Habib Bousanaya. And now the medical students inducted to the AUBFM GHHS chapter for the year 2023. Salwa Samir Abu Al-Joud. Dana Ramzi Andari. Tanya Sami Azar. Rawan Muhammad Diab. Razan Nazih Diab. محمد الأمير فتحي الجمال. الياس عبد المسيح الطيار. نهى مروان اليمن. يارا أحمد غندور. وائل خليل حنا. أليشيا عبد الله خزيقة. لين مازن قبيسي. محمد يوسف مديحلي. نارين فاروجان تمبليان. هادي ريمو يزبك. جاد حسين زيتون. Congratulations to all the inductees. I would like now to call on Ms. Lynn Kubaisi, class of 2024, to address the audience on behalf of the inductees.
Okay. Hello, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank Dr. Badr, Dr. Kanafani, Dean Sawaya, and the Gold Humanism Honor Society for giving me the opportunity to address you all today. Allow me to share an experience from my early days on the floors of internal medicine. It was during my first week that I encountered a patient who had been admitted to the floors with an unresolved fever, fatigue, and the weight of cancer. Each morning, for nearly 2 weeks, I would approach her bedside. And despite her overwhelming exhaustion, she would manage a smile and return my greetings. Over time, we developed a routine where I would inquire about her well-being, and she, in turn, would ask me about my life. It was during these conversations that we discovered our shared love for Mughrabiyya. One night, her sister, who had been listening to our conversations, brought her a plate of Mughrabiyya, which she enjoyed in the early hours of the morning, after a full week of no appetite. The second day, she eagerly told me all about this experience. Now, in this seemingly insignificant story, you may wonder, why is she choosing to recount a moment shared around a plate of Mughrabiyya? I share this anecdote to illustrate the power of these small interactions. In these 5 minutes of my time, I was reminded that beyond all the symptoms she had endured, she was a person, a mother, and a sister, all with her own unique perspective and life experiences. This story underscores the importance of recognizing the humanity of our patients amidst their medical condition. Our chosen field exposes us to the hardships and complexities of life, often encountering patients in their most vulnerable and the darkest times. Preserving our own humanity in these dark moments can be as hard and as difficult as the long hours of study and work required of us. However, what I can say without a doubt is that holding on to your humanity is always, always rewarding. Here tonight, I see some of my colleagues who have shed tears alongside their patients during difficult times, and who have shared laughter and celebrated victories as if they were their own family members. You know yourselves well. It is in these shared moments that medicine stands apart from other professions. We have the privilege of witnessing people in their most vulnerable states, reaching out for a helping hand, and embarking on a journey of recovery together. As a medical student at AUBMC, I'm incredibly proud of the emphasis placed on empathy and humanism within our institution. Faculty members such as Dr. Badr, Dr. Kanafani, Dr. Msharafieh, and Dr. Khater, to name a few, have consistently endorsed and supported these qualities, especially when two of my colleagues and I approached them with the idea of organizing a free clinic to assist patients in need. They supported us at every single step. Thanks to their encouragement, we have been able to help over 300 patients to date. Each Saturday, my friends and I volunteered in one of the free clinics at our institution under the supervision of AUBM Cares. It is in these moments that I have witnessed the collective efforts of students, residents, and attending physicians come together to overcome the difficulties our country faced, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic crises, and the medication shortages. These dedicated individuals have made personal sacrifices, often coming on their only days off, or after a long shift, to make sure that patients in need received care. Each clinic left me with a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction as I saw the relieved faces of our patients and felt that I had made a meaningful impact. I know that this sentiment is shared by my colleagues present here today, as well as all the doctors who have supported us during our endeavors. Reflecting on my medical experience in medical school, I never anticipated the extent to which I would be able to contribute and assist others the past 3 years. We often envision ourselves providing care and helping other patients, or perhaps even finding cure for cancer. But what we fail to acknowledge is the amount of impact we can have along the journey, even before we have the necessary credentials. We have taken, during our medical school, we have been privileged to first-handedly witness the impact doctors can have on their patients' lives. We have taken on various roles, from organizing and coordinating clinics, being emotional support to patients, listening to their concerns, and noticing small details others may have missed with their very busy schedule. We have learned to navigate crises by tirelessly seeking the best prices for medications and lab tests. And most importantly, we have built strong patient-doctor relationship based on trust and understanding. It is an honor to be inducted to this esteemed society alongside a group of people I know will make amazing doctors. I hope that empathy, humanism, and professionalism will always be endorsed at our institution, and that we make sure to remember that nothing can move us the way humanity does.
Thank you, Lynn, and congratulations again. We will now proceed with the recitation of the oath of the Gold Humanism Honor Society. I would like to ask all the inductees to please stand. And I would like to kindly ask you to recite the oath with me in your hearts so that you find yourself bound to it in all of your clinical endeavors. I pledge by all that I hold dear as a physician that I will care for my patients with compassion, respect, empathy, integrity, and clinical excellence. I will listen to my patients with my whole being. I will advocate for each patient as a unique individual. I will serve as a role model and mentor to promote humanism in healthcare. I will remember always the healing power of acts of caring. And I will dedicate myself to joining with others to make healthcare optimal for all. Thank you. Congratulations again. This brings this ceremony to an end. I would like to ask all the inductees, Dean Sawaya and Associate Dean Badr, to come to the podium or to the stage for a group picture. And please join us for a reception outside.